So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar about the soil health that is organized by Soilver. In this webinar, we will set the scene and will present different aspects of the soil health management in different European countries. So my name is Marta Popova. I'm a project manager at SPAC company in Belgium, and I'm also a chair of Soilver. So today I have the pleasure to moderate this webinar for you. Before we move forward, I would like just to provide you some technical instructions for the smooth running of this webinar. So please keep your microphone on mute, turn off your video, and if you have any questions, please use the chat. So what we have on the agenda today, we'll start with a short introduction to the soil health webinar and why we have organized this webinar series. I'll also briefly present the Soilver platform. Then we'll continue with providing a presentation about the soil health concept in the soil monitoring law proposal presented by Mirko Berbero, who is a representative from the European Commission. And then we'll continue with some presentations of the soil health management practices and regular context and different aspects in different European countries that are represented in Soilver, such as France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Spain, and Sweden. And we'll finish this meeting with a wrap-up, conclusions, and next steps. So I'll continue with a short presentation of Soilver that has initiated and that is organizing this series of webinar about the soil health. So Soilver is a small but very dynamic self-financed platform for knowledge development, knowledge exchange on different topics about soil and land management. So our main mission and motivation is to facilitate the collaboration between Soilver members and experts, policymakers, and other stakeholders in order to improve the existing practices, methodologies, and tools, and of course to provide some guidance towards a more sustainable and a better management of soil. We are convinced that there is an added value and benefits of collaboration among the Soilver members and also with external experts on shared interest and different topics. And with these joint efforts, we can drive really a progress on key issues of interest. For the moment, the Soilver members are ADEME from France, the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management from the Netherlands, SPAC and the Public Service from the Walloon region in Belgium, the Swedish Geotechnical Institute, and IHOBE, which is the environmental agency from the Basque Country. So on this slide, you can see the key initiatives and activities that we have made from the launch of Soilver in 2018. For example, in 2019, we have funded 3 research projects on different topics. The one of the projects relates to the recognition of the soil values in land use planning system, though. So it was already, it tackled the soil health topic. In parallel, we are organizing also coffee breaks, seminars, or webinars on different topics such as biochar, PFAS, oral bioaccessibility. We are also inviting researchers or experts from different European projects to present some the progress of their research from different topics of soil remediation, for example, or bioaccessibility, or ecological index of concern. In 2022, we have launched the European Soil Strategy and Low Knowledge meetings that was tackling some aspects such as the soil monitoring schemes in several European countries, a sustainable land use beyond agriculture and forestry, soil certificates, and soil passports. And in this year, we decided to launch this webinar series about the soil health as outlined in the soil monitoring law. So this is the first, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is the first webinar on this topic. And in 2025, we have planned to have 4 other webinars on soil health that will be more focused on different aspects of the soil health, such as the soil management and land planning, recycling brownfields, contaminated sites management, and the concept of technosoil. So here we can see what are the dates for the next webinars that are organized in 2025. And you can already block these dates in your agenda. So the first webinar on soil management land planning is fixed for the 24th of January. The second one about the recycling brownfields is set up on 4th of April. The third one, contaminated sites management, on the 12th of September. And the fourth webinar that will provide more insights about the concept of the technosoil is fixed for the 7th of November. So if you want to have more detailed agenda, this will be published next year, either on our webpage, or you can also follow us on LinkedIn, where we will publish some news about the detailed agenda of these webinars. So what questions and what key aspects we will tackle in these 4 webinars? Here I'll provide you just a small, not so detailed explanation, but just for you to have an idea. So with the first soil management and land planning webinar, we'll tackle the questions on how to ensure and protect the healthy soils in both urban and rural areas, which land planning or other policy tools are useful to ensure healthy soils inside and outside the city, and how to implement the no net land take principle. With regards to the second webinar about the recycling brownfields topic, we'll try to answer the following questions regarding the assessment of the soil health at urban project scale, or how to integrate the soil health when we are renewing urban areas and when we are recycling brownfields. With regards to the third webinar, which will be focused on the contaminated site management, we'll address the following issues about the evaluation and the restoration of soil health in order to improve the management of the polluted soil, or how to manage a contaminated soil in a more sustainable way, for example, by implementing some phytomanagement practices or natural-based solution. And the fourth webinar, which will be focused on the concept of the technosoil, will address the following questions. For example, can a technosoil become a healthy soil, or how the technosoil can contribute to the natural-based solutions for land reclamation and recycling, and how to create new healthy soils from excavated soil. So what we aim with the organization of these webinars and what are the expected outcomes is, of course, as I mentioned in the beginning, we would like to share different methodologies and different tools for soil health assessment. We'd like also to integrate the existing knowledge in urban soil management practices. It will be interesting also to identify the knowledge gaps and the knowledge needs. And of course, we'll aim at the end to so that more partnership emerge, and also to link to current and future living labs. So that was all from my side. And I will give the floor to Mr. Mirko Barbero from the European Commission, who will provide us a more in-depth knowledge about the soil health concept as outlined in the soil monitoring law proposal. Mr. Mirko Barbero is a policy officer for soil protection and sustainable land use. And since 2019, he leads the soil team within the unit Land Use and Management at the DG Environment in the European Commission. Mr. Barbero has a degree in physics, and for 12 years, he worked in the private sector as responsible for the quality of products and services. He joined the Commission in 2005, where he previously worked as team leader in internal audit, advising the management on how to improve performance, governance, and risk management in several policy areas. So, Mr. Barbero.
Thank you very much, Marta. To share the screen, yes, you have to stop. And then I will share my presentation. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Very good. So I will dedicate a dozen of minutes to speak about the soil health concept in the proposal of the Soil Monitoring and Resilience Directive. I would start from a learning moment. So let's say the failure of the Soil Framework Directive proposed in 2006 that had to be withdrawn by the Commission because it couldn't go through the Council. And the main reason was, well, soil doesn't move, so that's a national competence. And so we had to rethink the approach and the narrative. And then it became clear that it was key to look at the ecosystem services that are provided by soil. So the soil's capacity to provide those ecosystem services and the links that all these ecosystem services have with the key aspects, because they are transboundary. So soil is, for example, is absorbing and storing soil organic carbon, which helps to mitigate climate change, and that's which is a problem which is transboundary. Soil is producing food which is in the internal market and goes beyond the country that has produced it. So food security is a key aspect linked with soil capacity to provide this ecosystem service, but also the capacity of water cycling, so of retaining, absorbing, and filtering water. This is key also for preventing and mitigating the impacts of natural disasters, and this goes beyond the natural borders. So you see, while focusing on the ecosystem services, the capacity of soil to provide them, it is clear that is a common issue where we have problems and where it makes sense for the EU to propose legislation. And this has been called soil health. So soil health is about the capacity of providing those ecosystem services. But I would say not only, because here we are also linking with the concept of One Health. So the health of humans is linked with the health of animals, of the environment, so of the soil. And indeed, one clear link is with contaminated sites, which are a threat, could represent an unacceptable risk for human health and the environment. So in the concept of soil health, there is also the link with the human health through contamination, but not only. I would say that in soil biodiversity, there are elements which link also positively with human health. Let's not forget that our body is in symbiosis with bacteria, with the microbiota that is not so different from the biome in soil. So this is also a link still to be explored and developed in research. But there is also place for that in the proposal of the SML. So this is the new narrative, the new concept of soil health that has been embedded in the soil monitoring law. And this has also a series of consequences, like first of all, the land is limited. So if we focus only on one ecosystem service and we dedicate one area only for that one, for example, for food production, then we would need too much land to be able to also to satisfy the other ecosystem services. So we need multifunctionality of soils. Multifunctionality of soil is key. And you see all the aspects that are covered. This leads also to willing to integrate the soil policy into all the policies that are touched by the ecosystem services: climate mitigation, food security, natural risk prevention, and then yeah, climate adaptation, biodiversity, and zero pollution. And this integration of soil health in other policies is really visible in the proposal for the soil monitoring law, because, for example, there is no request for a dedicated action plan to be developed by member states. On the contrary, the, the, the point is about integrating any action, any measure on soil into the existing plans, the programs that are requested um, already by existing legislation. This is I think you have already seen this, the scheme of what is in the soil monitoring law proposal. First of all, a clear objective, which is reflecting the vision for soil to obtain healthy soils by 2050. Why healthy soils? Because this contributes in an essential way to our well-being, to our future well-being, and to addressing the key challenges we have in front of us. And then the definition includes also the definition what in practice healthy soil is, how to measure soil health, and when can be considered that there is a problem with the soil health. So there is actually a critical loss of the capacity of providing ecosystem services. And then monitoring, the monitoring and assessment framework is all based on measuring those indicators who are able to show a problem with the provision of ecosystem services. The idea there is to have a comparable data. So rather than forced harmonization, the proposal allows member states to maintain their methodology, but requesting to have a transfer function, so a possibility of translating those values into something that can be compared. So there is a reference methodology which is proposed, and the Commission, member states, and science will help to provide those transfer functions for this comparability of data. There is also a different approach with respect of the role of the Commission and member states, because when you look at the block 04, services and support, there is clearly data support. So the Commission intends to continue its Lucas soil survey and put at disposal those data to member states, so that alleviating their efforts to monitor, but also providing a portal where to put to integrate all the data from all sources. And then those data are not there just to have data and play with them, but to become an essential element in decision making. So using those data at local level. So to know, is there a problem with soil health locally? Is there a critical loss of some ecosystem services that would require taking action? And that will be an interesting exercise, the first one that will be done according to the law in 5-6 years, because there we will see really the link between the data and what can be done, and the link with the integration with the other policies. For example, let's imagine an example. Okay, we measure also soil compaction, and then we find an area locally that where soil compaction is high, and maybe soil water retention also is low, and this links maybe with the river basin, which shows an increased risk for flooding, and so there you could consider to make risk management and involve insurances so that you get funding to promote practices that alleviate soil compaction, or at least they allow for better infiltration of water, maybe solutions that are also good for absorbing soil organic carbon. And there you see clearly the links with the disaster risk prevention, with the river basin management, with the LULUCF and the nature restoration law. Contaminated sites, they require a specific chapter. Maybe I will go to this scheme that shows that indeed contaminated sites on one side and land already taken and new land take, they require specific tailored regimes, legislative regimes. So they have their own specific way of being monitored and managed. That's why in contaminated sites, we know we may have a critical issue with for the risk of human health. And then so we focus on that aspect. On land take, there is also critical loss of ecosystem services. So we focus on principles to minimize and offset the impact. And for the rest, all soils are covered by the monitoring, which is based on soil sampling, on-site soil sampling, and which is not applicable to neither to land taken nor to contaminated sites, just for clarification. So just a last flash of a very generic summary of what is contained in Annex 1, where you see that soil health is translated into a series of aspects of soil degradation. And for each aspect of soil degradation, there is a soil descriptor which is proposed, but this has been discussed and also by the council, and there's been reopened, and I would say even improved with a lot of involvement of other experts. But this just gives an idea of how the indicators, the common indicators were chosen, what soil health means, and how this can be integrated in the future implementation in the other policies. So I would stop here, and maybe if there are any question, I'm happy to answer, but I will have to move from here.
Thank you very much, Mirko, for your insights of the soil health. I look at the chat right now, but I haven't seen questions directly related yet to your presentation. But maybe I do have a question for you. So the soil health is highly interlinked with ecosystem services, and maybe sometimes these ecosystem services there are lots of discussions around it, but like, is there any official definition, or is there any list of ecosystem services for soils, official list, or does that exist, and does the soil monitoring law clarifies anything in that sense?
At the moment, the list is in the, if I'm not wrong, in the recital. So there is a list which is not intended to be comprehensive, but it focuses on the key ones. So indeed, we could have fixed this list. Maybe it's too early. I think it's also important to leave room for science to come with new knowledge and remind that there is one other ecosystem service that should be ideally included because it's essential for our well-being and for life and so on. But for the moment, there is a clear definition, a clear list, which is already the starting point. We need to start from somewhere. We know that knowledge is not complete, but it's important with the current knowledge to start and move.
Okay, thank you. I see that there is one question from Born. He would like to know in what extent this soil monitoring law proposal is linked to the nature restoration law.
A main link is that it is complementary. So it was developed being fully aware of what was being done in the nature restoration law. So, for example, peatlands are dealt with in the restoration of peatlands are clearly dealt with in the nature restoration law, while in the soil monitoring law proposal we refer to the target there. There is a target in the nature restoration law on content on the soil organic carbon in agriculture and for forest soils. We don't have targets in the soil monitoring law, but we have a clear way to measure soil organic carbon. So this will help to monitor the reaching of the target in the NRL. So yeah, one helps the other and complements the other. That's the main link. Yeah.
Thank you very much. If there are other questions, don't hesitate to put it in the chat, but I think we should move forward in the agenda. So thank you very much for your insights.
It was a pleasure. Bye.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we'll move to the 5 presentations from the Solvar members that will provide us some insights about the soil health management context in the different countries that are represented in Solvar. And we'll start our presentation with France, presented by Cécile Grand from ADEME. Cécile, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Cécile Grand. I'm working in the French Agency for Ecological Transition at the Department for Urban Brownfield and Contaminated Site. And I will present an overview of the methodology that has developed recently. The overview of this methodology integrate or introduce soil health for sustainable land management. First of all, in the first, we can make context or regulatory context for soil health assessment. In France, there is no global soil policy like we can have for water and marine environment. So soil is taking into consideration sector by sector. For example, for polluted site and soil management, the soil is only known with chemical analysis and is based on human and environmental risk. For the natural risk prevention, the soil is taking into consideration with flooding risk and erosion risk. For land planning management, we can have some soil criteria only for construction. And for agriculture and forest management, we can have some local soil criteria that can be used locally for some type of culture. Recently, in 2014, there is a law for housing and renewable urban area that introduce the Soil Information Area, SIS. This is only for polluted site. It's just for chemical soil quality. And this is a way to be sure that there is a traceability when there is a change of land use. In 2018, the strategy, the biodiversity strategy, introduced soil knowledge is needed in order to preserve and to restore soil quality. And more recently, we have a climate and resilience law in 2021 introduced the ecological soil function in the no-net land take that has been to be achieved in 2050. So what is in the climate and resilience law, there is definition of the net land take and is defined as a difference between artificialized soil and restored soil observed in a specific area and one period. This means that to achieve no net land take is necessary to reach a balance between areas where the soil is artificialized and the area where the soil is restored. And this objective has to be reached by 2050. For the no-net land take, there are two periods. The first period is between 2021 and 2031. In this period, they have to reduce by half the land take. This means the consumption of the soil, natural soil, agricultural soil, and forest soil has to be divided by half in 10 years. And after 2031, from 2031 to 2050, they have to achieve a balance between soil artificialized and soil restored. Even if we have a classification of land use to know if the soil is considered artificialized or is not artificialized, if we want to be sure in some cases that the soil is restored, we will need to integrate soil data. So this approach is based on ecological soil function, and we need some data in 3 dimensions and not only surface data. Some definitions are existing in this law, and it's a bit different than the definition that in soil monitoring law, because soil is artificialized when it loses all of a part of ecological function as a result of its occupation or use. And soil is restored when the soil recovers or improves the soil functionality. And this is the soil monitoring definition. The soil is artificialized when it loses the capacity of soil to provide ecosystem services. And it is restored when it recovers the capacity of soil to provide ecosystem services. But anyway, we have a lot of link between this concept of soil function and ecosystem services. And here, the climate and resilience law decided to use the concept of soil function, rely on soil properties and ecological soil processes. And this means we have to introduce indicator of ecological soil function. And in the soil monitoring law, it's more large because the concept of ecosystem services is used, and the proposition is to get indicators of soil degradation. But anyway, we have here right now 2 documents that are in progress in the international standardization, ISO. These 2 documents explain the concept and the definition of soil function and ecosystem services. And the second document lists indicators that can be used to quantify ecological soil function. The 2 documents are in progress and they will be available at the beginning of 2025. Which tools are available right now? First, we start with state-of-the-art SOLVAL. That is study that the SOLVAL was financed by Solvay. And in this state-of-the-art, we can see how soil is taken into consideration in land use planning in France and in Wallonie. And from now, we got some 3 research projects, MUSE, SUPRA, DESTISOL, that had been developed last few years, and they propose methodology to get information on soil ecological function. And then we got some report, and we have report in France, but one of them, Supra project, the researcher decided to write in English a publication, and you can find the methodology and the selection of soil health indicators for modeling soil function to promote smart urban planning. This is a single publication in English. And then we got another methodology to identify background values at two scale, territorial scale and local scale, with two different methodology and two different documents. But these documents are in French. The whole methodology are in the website. Everything is available in the platform, but most of the time, the documents are in French. I can explain simply the methodology MUSE that has been developed for as a process for mapping soil functionality. This methodology has been developed by many researchers and the main French institutes that are competent in the subject. If you want to know more about the methodology, I invite you to join us next year for the 4th webinar series, because they will be invited to explain better with more details this methodology. This is based on soil coming from database. Different database can be used to estimate agronomic value, infiltrability, carbon storage, and soil biodiversity. The methodology, it's scoring methods, and this ecological soil function, they are graduated from 0 to 5. This is a way to represent soil function in a map. We can have some data coming from pedological references, from database, from agronomic value, chemical value. Some are coming from other platform, because in ALDO platform, we have a relationship between land use and carbon storage in soil and carbon storage in biomass, depending on land use and on the district. So we have many databases used to estimate this ecological soil function. This is an example of assessing soil functionality at regional scale. This scale is 1 to 250,000. This is an example of an administrative district where we can easily represent ecological soil function from 0 to 5, because this is the sum of the 4 ecological soil function. In the north of the department, we have a soil suitable for biodiversity, carbon storage. In the south, we have soil suitable for agriculture. And in the middle of the department, we can see high functionality, a high level of functionality for this soil. And we can explain why the urban area, most important urban area, that have been developed in such part of the department. This is mainly linked because the soil has a high level of functionality. Another example of assessing soil functionality at land planning scale. In this scale, for land planning scale, we need more detail, and the map should be details with other database and modeling. In that case, we got some map with 1 to 5,000 and 1 to 10,000. This means it's more with more data. We can have map with more details. Here, it's represented the 4 ecological soil function in this district. Darker is the color and better is the ecological soil function. And when we make the addition of the whole ecological soil function, we have a note from 0 to 20. If there is a low soil functionality, it's red. And if it's a high soil functionality, it's green or blue. Here, we can see the big part of the red color is for urban cities and the urban area. But in another cases, you can see some red color everywhere in other part of the district. And this is not directly linked to urban area. In some cases, it can be linked because the soil storage, the carbon storage is low, or infiltrability is a capacity to infiltrate water is low. And the last methodology that has been developed, it has been developed at land planning scale for project scale. And this is based on field investigation. This has been developed by a consultant, and we can see in the left part of the slide, in the left part of the slide, you can see the first map with part of the land are red and part of the land are green. When it's green, this means the land has had so many human activities. And when it's red, this means the land has had a lot of human activity in the past. And it's why we can make the difference between different artificialized soil. And when the consultant decided to get some data directly and to sampling data, to sampling soil, to use another methodology, but it's a scoring method. It's exactly the same principle. It calculates the ecological soil function, and it added many ecological soil functions, and it can make the difference between soil with high functionality and soil with low functionality. And we can see that even if the soil can be artificialized because it has many uses in the past, if it's renewed with high quality and with good soil, we can find in urban area soil with high quality and high functionality. And it's not artificialized anymore. And this can change the quantity of an artificialized soil. And finally, we have other methodology to identify background values. We make the difference between natural background values and artificialized background values, because in urban area, we have a lot of backfill material. This means we have different methodology for territorial scale and local scale. So what research has been done? The different methodology has been developed by researchers in order to introduce soil function into land planning. But this methodology, they have been developed to meet different needs at different scales. This means now the methodology has to be improved and should be operational for land planners, and we miss a lot of feedback and comparison between the whole methodology. Many questions remain about soil references that should be used by urban planners, because we used to use soil references coming from agriculture soil, and we ask question, maybe, is it a good reference to evaluate ecological soil function in urban area? And we aware local authorities that it's important for them to have soil characterized in planning process, because we lack of knowledge of urban soil, and urban soil is less well known compared to agricultural soil. So right now, what are the main challenges in land planning processes to introduce soil health in the methodology? Considering soil in land use planning a matter of scale above all. The first challenge is the temporal scale. For soil formation and pedogenesis, for the soil formation, it takes time, and pedogenesis can take time from centuries to 1,000 years to form. But when we work on soil artificialization, this can be very fast. The loss of ecological soil function can be very fast, and that can take hours to days. This means we have a temporal asymmetry between soil formation and its destruction, and it takes a long time to restore soil functions. And the second point is when we work on soil health assessments, the problem with soil health assessment is changing all the time. The second challenge is a spatial scale. We have developed different methodology because we have to introduce soil health at different scale. And maybe the methodology should be different depending on the scale, because the issue is different. The result of the map is different. For example, at the national and regional scale, we need to quantify artificialized soils to select area with soil degradation. The result of the methodology is to get map from soil erosion, soil compaction, soil sealing, or soil artificialized by land use. When we are in the land planning scale, the objective is different. We have to introduce soil data into land planning. We have to select areas where the soil has to be preserved. We have to select areas where the soil has to be managed for the project, urban project, and we have to select areas where the soil has to be restored. This means for the result of the methodology, we need specific area mapping. We need map with green corridors, map with flooding risk, some maps with areas for soil restoration, and in some cases, we need areas for urban densification. And the last scale, the project scale, is the objective to introduce soil data in project development. It's important to understand soil health because it can be used to design the project, the urban project, can be used to reuse and soil material, and it can be useful to landscape an area, for example, to adapt soil quality, to grow trees, or to create lawn, or to create a park. So if you have a question and comment, I am available, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Cécile. It was very nice insights from France. I look at the chat right now.
You have one question, I think. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Marta.
From Mr. Barbero. Yes.
I may? Okay.
Yes, of course.
Very interesting, plenty of points, so it would be interesting to discuss. Maybe one statement for me to understand. You said soil health is changing all the time. Well, there are some aspects which are quite constant, I would say, and depends in general from the management. So what do you mean? What is changing in your soil health view?
Yes, the soil health is changing with land use, and this is more linked with urban strategy, and that when you have a map, you always have to renew the map, because in urban area they are renewing all the time, and this is linked to the example with the brownfield, that it can be considered that is artificialized, because brownfield has had in the past many human activities. But anyway, if the restoration is good, we can have some good health. This means in the time of the urban planning, the soil health can be changed. It's more this idea.
Okay. Maybe if there are some further questions, please put it in the chat. I think we should be moving on the next presentation.
Yeah, I think so also, in order to keep the timing. So there are no questions in the chat box, so probably Esther, you can move a little bit north.
Yep.
From France.
Not so far away though. Do you see the presentation? Yeah.
Yeah, and probably
okay.
In presentation mode.
Okay, so my name is Esther Watts. I'm working in Belgium, Wallonia, in the Ministry of Agriculture, Natural Resources and Environment. And I will try to tackle soil health, or to show how soil health is handled in Wallonia. Just for a brief reminder for those who are not familiar with Belgium, we are quite a small country, densely populated, but in which the legislations according to environment and agriculture are handled at the regional level. So we have 3 administrative regions in charge of those topics. since the 1980s. And that means that we have different soil legislations. And so here I will talk about Wallonia, which is the southern part of Belgium. Half of our territory is under agriculture, 1/3 under forests, and the rest is artificialized.
Excuse me, Esther. There is probably a little problem with the presentation mode. We can see it.
Okay.
If you want, I can share the presentation.
Yeah, maybe it's better. It worked when we tried it, but then now it's not working anymore. So maybe you can do it if you want.
You want me to share it, Marta?
Yes, please, because I can't reach the team site at the moment.
Okay, we see it, but now we need to put it, yeah. Is it then working?
Okay.
It's in presentation mode as well, I think.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm sorry for this.
Okay, thank you. So if you can go to the next more slides. Yes. And the next slide. Okay, so back to the regulatory context. We have a soil decree that was updated in 2018, and it aims, of course, to preserve soil quality, but this notion or this concept is not defined. It is also aiming at preserving soil functions. Those are listed, and it also targets the prevention of soil threats and degradation, and aims at remediating degraded soils, as well as promoting sustainable soil management. But this is a main general article, and in fact, when you have a look at the whole mechanism that is put in place by the soil decree, it's mainly focusing on soil pollution, including the management of excavated soils. So that means that there is no real soil health concept. It is a bit scattered around different policies, such as under agricultural policy, energy, climate, land planning, of course, biodiversity, forest, even circular economy and health considerations. So that means that we don't have really a centralized place for soil health, nor dedicated guidance around it. But of course, we are waiting for the soil monitoring law that will help us to put there a central concept in our soil decree. Next slide, please. At least we are discussing in a transversal way within the administration. There is the Soil Management Committee, which is based in my ministry, and we are in touch also with land planning and other ministries to discuss around soil. And current legal developments are rather targeting diffuse pollution management, emerging pollutants, as well as soil quality assessment. So I will come back later on this soil quality assessment. Next slides, please. When we talk about land planning and soil management, we do have a legislation which is called the Code of Territorial Development that was recently updated, and that aims to ensure sustainable and attractive development, but taking into account special optimization. That means that we need to reduce artificialization, urban sprawl, and soil sealings. And there is a mandatory report to be done every 3 years. A special strategy is accompanying this legislation, which is called the Regional Development Plan, that was also recently adopted. And this is a bit more specific because it sets two targets. The first one is to reach non-Atlantic by 2050, so as it is done at the European level. And then it's also targets to reach a production of at least 3 out of 4 new dwellings in so-called central areas, which is a new concept also introduced by this strategy. For those two targets, we have indicators and trajectories. They need to be followed in each zone. There are 7 zones defined in Wallonia, and so each zone has its own trajectory for zero net artificialization and for the limitation of urban sprawl. This has to be done based on the commonly accepted principle: avoid, reduce, compensate, and this means to mobilize artificial land and wastelands, including brownfield, instead of going on green fields. And this is also linked to the preservation of ecosystem services and limiting the sealing of soil. Next slide, please. The concept of central areas or centrality, this is linked to spatial optimization. That means that the idea is to centralize the activities, so mainly housing and shops, into dedicated areas and organize and reinforce them. And this is in line with what is discussed at the European level, dealing with territorial agendas for 2030. There is a regional map at the Walloon level, but local authorities can develop their own centralities in their local development scheme, and they have 6 years to do it. Otherwise, the regional map will apply. Once you have defined those centralities, then there are different rules to follow. And one of the rules is linked to the level of open ground, which you can find in a given area. This is linked to soil sealing. An open ground area is an area where there is no construction, including in the subsoil. There is no artificial material, and it allows to ensure the soil functions and ecosystem services. So it is really the start of the third dimension, because like Cécile mentioned, the land planning is rather two-dimensional, where soil quality or soil health vision is a third dimension. For example, in the table, you can see that there is different rules for that open ground coefficient for any project which is more than half an hectare. And there is a given percentage to respect. If you are in centralities, you need to have at least 30% of open ground in your project, whereas out of centralities, then the percentage is higher, of course. Next slide, please. When it comes to that third dimension and the assessment of soil quality, currently, it's mainly based on the following data. So one of the first questions, are we in a potentially contaminated site or a contaminated site? And what is the history of the land use? So this is mainly used in soil pollution management. But other data linked to the soil map, the soil characteristics, are also used in, for example, environmental legislation, like when we need to assess the impact of projects on environment. It's also used in agricultural policies, also in implementation of renewable energy projects. So this can be widely used, but it's still, let's say, it sticks still to sectoral policies, and there is no real integrated assessment of soil health yet. Next slide, please. Our tools that we are using are, of course, the State of the Environmental Report, which is running since a long time, and it provides information, also quality and constraints and limits of each indicators, and it provides status and trends, at least where relevant. So that means where there is a legal target or international target, or there are enough scientific knowledge to define some thresholds. And it is continuously updated, and you can see here some of the indicators that are provided. Beyond that report, next slide, please. There is, of course, all the data and maps which are available in our GeoPortal, which is Inspire compliant. And you can have many data, including soil data and land planning and housing data as well. Next slide, please. I will then show you some example of those maps. On the left side, the land use and the land cover, which is quite provided at a detailed resolution, but still we need to improve it to get along with the different typologies that will be defined by the soil monitoring law. Of course, the soil types, which is based on a very detailed map that was done last century, let's say, but that was a very detailed one. And then on the right side, some characteristics like organic carbon and soil texture, which are really useful to derive other maps and other soil characteristics. Next slide, please. Some further indication on erosion potential, which is useful when you want to manage erosion problem. We have also runoff axes, which are used when delivering building permits or urban permits to avoid problems with runoff in houses. And on the right side, data linked to water, soil water retention, which were derived based on pedotransfer functions. Next slide, please. Some application, let's say, in urban soils. Well, that's our inventory of potentially contaminated site or contaminated site, and this is also triggered by the soil decree itself. That means that when you sell a land, you need to get the information for both the buyer and the seller of the land. When it comes to agricultural soils, we have one agri-environmental and climatic measure, which is result-based and using the indicator of soil organic carbon to clay ratio. And this is a new measure from 2024. And then on forest soil, for example, we are using the soil map to improve the forest species that needs to be integrated for new plantations. So those are concrete examples of the use of soil data for, let's say, policy or management purposes. Next slide, please. So for the research that has been done or is planned, we had lots of research running under our recovery plan. So which is almost amounting to 10 million euro. And we have several projects dedicated to soil quality, advisory system and incentives for soil analysis. And then another part of the project are really tackling land take and soil sealing. And of course, we are still projects running on soil pollution, but I won't be detailing them. Next slide, please. What I will be detailing is the specifically the one targeting the soil quality monitoring and the development of an integrated soil quality indicator. Next slide, please. So there is an action to develop the soil health monitoring according to the concept brought forward by the soil monitoring law, which is the soil unit. So in Belgium, we will be using the soil districts, which actually are equivalent to our administrative regions. Then the EU soil regions, which are broad soil types. We have 7 of those in Belgium, and then the land use classes according to LULUCF. That means that to set that the monitoring design, we have about 60 soil units to be characterized by around 1,500 sampling sites. But we are right now refining the data for Wallonia to be a bit more specific and to get closer to the management level. The next steps will be to integrate and adapt the existing monitoring networks to the requirements of the future soil monitoring law. And of course, to complement the soil analysis, because some of the soil parameters we don't have yet. So I mentioned those here, like electrical conductivity, the bulk density, saturated hydraulic conductivity linked to the water curve, of course, and parameters about soil biodiversity and biological activity. Next slide, please. The other part is to develop an integrated soil quality index. And this will have like two parts. One part dedicated to citizens to mainly raise awareness among the general public. It won't be soil analysis at the laboratory level, but rather observatory criteria and use of existing information, and to provide advices to preserve or restore soil health. And the other part will be more for professionals and then project managers. There we will get to more detailed information going to laboratories, and it will be used to improve the environmental impact assessment and also the recommendations for soil use and restoration within projects. Next slide, please. To mention also that we have currently projects which are more at the European level. So there is that All for Soil project which has just been submitted, and it's a living lab dedicated to nature-based solution to accelerate the regeneration of contaminated lands. And another project which will be submitted next January is around urban soils and land planning decision integrating soil quality. Next slide, please. And those those will be I guess discussed in the next webinars, so there will be more details around it. The challenges to be addressed is really, like Cécile shown as well, is linking soil health to land planning decision, and this is why we try to move forward a better soil health definition and an integrated soil health assessment as a supporting tool. Another challenge is to assess soil health itself and their ecosystem services, but at the appropriate scale, because you can have nice maps, but as long as they are not detailed enough, it is quite limited sometimes for soil managers or land managers. So the scale issue is critical as well. Other challenge is to change a bit our habit in the management of contaminated sites, because until now we are just sort of managing the risks from soil contamination, but to move beyond that level of restoration is still a big challenge. And so ways to move forward are really a key in that situation. And the last challenge is also with when we are facing circular economy and that we circulate pollution within that economy. And this is the case when we are using, for example, excavated soils or sometimes fertilizers. So the limiting of that circular economic concept is a big challenge, especially if we want to ensure healthy soils, and soils are usually the last compartment to be taken into account in the different decision processes. Okay, with that, I think it's the last slide, and I thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Esther. For the moment, there are no questions in the chat. I don't know if someone wants to comment, or we can move on to the next presentation probably. So I give the words to Margot de Kleen from the Ministry of the Infrastructure and Water Management of the Netherlands, to provide us an insight about the key aspects of the soil health in the Netherlands.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, well, I'm happy to be here with you. I'm Margot from the Netherlands. I work at the Executive Office of the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management, and I'm an advisor on soil policy. I want to share you some thing about the way we are working in the Netherlands, the laws we have and regulations. But first, I want to show you something about our country. The Netherlands is a delta country. It's very densely populated, and a big part of our country is below sea level. And this means that we have some issues and challenges which are all related to how we use our land and how we manage our land, and thus also how we manage our soil and water. You can understand that climate change has a big impact on our country. The low part, the half part, which is green in this map, is all below sea level, and it's also subsiding. This is partly caused by peat oxidation and also partly because of, the tectonic plates, which are just lowering. At the same time, most of the people are living in those areas. Other big challenges is that we have a growing population, and we have an enormous shortage on housing, and we of course strive at the meantime for healthy cities. And next to that, we have other challenges like circular economy. I want to show you how we try to regulate that with our policy, but also I want to make clear that policies, of course, are also cultural, social, and economically determined and based on natural characteristics. Our soil health related regulatory context is formed by the fact that we have recently put into force a very big new law, which is the Environment and Planning Act, in which all the environmental acts and the planning have become under one regulatory framework. This means that everything on spatial planning, on housing, on infrastructure, but also on all the environmental quality, nature and water is now under one law. And also our former soil decree is now part of this law. This means that each authority has to make a spatial vision in which also is stated what they want to do on the environment. And it has to be an integrated vision and has to be discussed also with the stakeholders in the area to whom these new spatial plans are of concern. Within these visions, and in spatial development, it's said that water and soil should be guiding. And this now has also become a little bit under discussion because should it be guiding or should it be taken into account? And one is more determining than the other. At the same time, we also have some visions set up by different ministries because, soil is everywhere. It's also in a lot of, it's important for climate, it's important for agriculture, it's important in economy. So we find soil in our different ministries. And the Ministry of Agriculture has drawn up a national program for sustainable agriculture. And one of the goals in this vision is that all agricultural soils are sustainably managed in 2030. So that's quite a big aim they put on. And they already started working towards those sustainably managed soils a few years ago, by making up a program with management proposals and people training, people working in the field with examples to manage their land sustainably. The Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management, on the other hand, is responsible for soil quality regulation and the framework. And at this moment, they are updating their soil regulation also to bring it in line with what's happening in Europe with the soil strategy and the EU soil monitoring regulation. They are preparing a national program on soil, subsurface and groundwater, where vital soils are at the core, and at the same time they want to make or undertake actions to restore degraded soils and to find ways to reuse excavated soils with in a sense that they create as much value as possible. And next to that, the ministry is preparing a national environment plan in which the core is healthy ecosystems. And so also the soil ecosystem is part of that plan. The national vision as an underlayment for this Soil Act, it's a spatial plan for the environment, and also their soil is part in this vision. This national vision is based on a couple of principles, and one of those principles is that combinations of land use go before single use. So it means that you not only go for agriculture, but you go for agriculture and climate adaptation or mitigation, for example. Another principle is that the central focus should lie on the characteristics and the identity of an area, which means that you should take into account water and the natural system. The water and soil should be guiding. And an important principle is that we want to prevent the shifting of responsibilities. Each level of authority has its own responsibility. So the national government, the provinces, and the municipalities all have a special goal and responsibility. Well, some examples of multiple use, it can be of very, very local scale, like a cycling path, which also provides energy for the lighting in the evening, to creating green areas for playing and relaxing, which can keep water when there's enormous overload of water. The IKEA center in or mall in the city of Utrecht was only allowed to expand if they made room on their roof for sports. So they have two football fields on the roof. And for example, also the covering of dikes, which go and fit the ecological requirements of the area, so which you see at this picture. Another thing of soil management and land planning, which I want to show is how water and soil could and should be guiding in spatial planning. Also, this concept has some leading principles which should be well taken up into your spatial plan. It means that no passing on should take place. So no passing on of negative effects of your spatial plan to future generations, other regions, or from private to public. Extremes have to be taken into account. So extremes can be extremes caused by climate change. There should be a coherent approach for water, hindrance, draft, and soil. So it should not be considered as sectorial items, but in a holistic way. and there should be a tiered approach for water safety. I said that water safety is one of the big items in the Netherlands, as we are under stress of sea level rising and high loads of water coming by the river. So first dikes, safety also integrated in the spatial planning. And if that does not always fit with very extreme events, then crisis management should be organized and already planned in advance. One of the things for making water and soil guiding is also that we strive for less sealing and less excavating of soil and no contamination. This also meets to the goals of the EU soil strategy, but we do not have indications saying you are not allowed to, or no net land management is not a goal in itself at this moment. We strive for an integrated approach when we make up a spatial plan, and if you do not want to comply these principles, you have to explain why you do not in this certain case. We have some separate spatial regulations, which is that there is a ladder of urbanization, which means that you start first to look within an urban area if you can find solutions there before you go to virgin land. We want to preserve high value agricultural land. We do not want to make that part of urbanization or a housing project, and we want to minimize claims for solar fields, logistic and data centers, because they take up a lot of space, and we want to see whether those can be organized somewhere else or in another way. We strive for moving with the system, so we have a lot of nature-based solutions where we want to make 1 and 1 2. We strive for multiple use, for example, by the project Room for the River. We create room for the river and thus strive for climate adaptation, and at the same time these areas are used for biodiversity, for nature, and also for recreation. So you get a multiple use of the land. The same can be said for the project Sand Engine, where this sand moves with the tide and with the dynamics of the sea, forms a protection barrier in front of the Dutch coasts, and in that sense protects land. At the same time, it creates new land where nature can settle itself, and already has settled itself, and it's a great recreation center. The Markerwadde is a project where excavated sludge, which was a big problem for the water quality, has been treated in a way that small isles could be created. These now form a nature project, and at the same time the water quality has much improved. And another nature-based project to improve agricultural soils is CO2 sand, where small layers of excavated soil are used to repair degraded sandy soils in the eastern part of the Netherlands. Some examples of land recovery we have are, for example, brownfields which become housing, or old landfills for recreation, or the rooftop on infrastructure at Maastricht, where a lot of environmental problems were stopped by just putting a roof on the road and creating a new park at the same time, topping up the value of all the houses and making the city whole again. Soil management and land planning, it's not only about climate adaptation and nature-based solutions. Of course, we have also a very big policy on soil quality assessment, which is mainly chemical based, and it's about prevention, management and restoration. We have the National Soil Protection Law, which has been updated and is part now of the Environment and Planning Act, which I mentioned before. And we have a national approach for soil management, which is risk-based. We have soil quality maps so that people can see what's the quality of the soil they're living on and what quality of soil can be used on those locations. And we have a soil passport for excavated soils. There's an agricultural soils program, which I mentioned before, and there's been set up a set of indicators to see whether those soils are healthy, and I'll show you some of it later. And we strive for circular use of excavated soils. We have a national approach for contaminated land. All local soil contamination should be without risk for the environment, and otherwise measures should be taken. This program is nearly finished. I think we have a handful of sites which are still a problem, but then I mean local sites, because we still have a lot of problem with diffuse contamination, and we recently set up a special program for PFAS and other diffuse contamination. We have quite some tools available, because you can understand that if you want to take up soil and water in your spatial planning, you also need data to make it possible. Therefore, we have a national register for soil and subsurface. It's called the BRO. There's also a national index of soil indicators for agricultural soils, which I mentioned before. But there's also an open soil index, which is made up by from bottom-up parties. There are several case studies going on for land recovery, for sediment recovery. There's indeed a lot going on: planning with the subsurface, designing with soil in cities, circular land management, nature-based solutions, and so on and so on. We have several knowledge programs. I'd like to mention a program for PFAS, but also the program for soil subsidence, and of course climate adaptation and spatial planning. We have learning communities where stakeholders together exchange experiences, but also develop knowledge, for example, on circular use of soil and land and climate adaptation. We have websites with information on the legislation, but also with guidance documents, methodologies and case studies, where you can see what's already been done in the Netherlands and which parties have been responsible for that, so that you can contact them and learn from them. And there are awareness programs and education is going on, like Planet Soil, Enharden Your Garden, and Clever Gardens. Here are some examples of the tools and instruments. You can see here the register soil and subsurface, where you can find data of what's happening beneath the subsurface. There is information about soil research, but also groundwater data with chemical parameters, but also the flow of groundwater and so on, and also subsurface plans, for example, here from the community of Almere. We have a database where you can find information about the soil and soil quality even on your zip code. And we have the Open Soil Index, where people can upload data about their chemistry and nutrients, their soil structure, soil biology and environmental parameters, and also how they manage their soil. It comes in a kind of benchmark, and they get well, a score how they are doing, and they get tips on how they can well, ameliorate their soil by certain measures or management. Soil indicators for agricultural soils, they are about organic matter, about physical parts of soil, but also about chemicals and biological parameters, and also what you can see visually about the soil. And together they are assigned for the soil health at the location. What research has been done and has been planned? Well, I'd like to give some examples. I want to go into the knowledge program of PFAS again, because this is something which is really, well, urgent in the Netherlands, and has felt a lot of urgency. We have a handbook on designing with vital soil in urban areas, which gives proposals to cities how they can green, how they can make their cities climate adaptive, and so on. And they give all kind of handy examples how you can do that. We have the Life Plus CO2 Sand project, but we also, for example, have a national research program which is called Soil Pros, where we have PhDs doing research on soil life and the relation to the functioning of ecosystem services. We have the project Planet Soils, which also gave or produced a big movie, and it's on soil awareness. But within this whole project, there's also a validation center for soil life. How do you call it, made, and there are all kind of soil data on soil life is validated and gathered. There is a project on how to end aftercare for landfills, but also for contaminated and controlled sites. So to be able to use the land again under safe circumstances. There's a new project upcoming, which is called Thirsty Cities. It's also a national program to make cities climate proof. And there's well, there are also soil living labs underway. What are the main challenges I'd like to address? Well, one of the big problems, of course, is how do we solve the spatial puzzle? There are so many claims on land. How do we, well, find a way to make our cities and climate proof and biodiverse and healthy, and that all within our planetary boundaries? How can we make that soil and water system is respected as the motor in solving our societal challenges? With PFAS and other contaminants of high concern, is it still responsible to keep excavated land in the loop for circular use? And if we want that, how can we achieve that? What do we need to know, and how can we handle it? Also, healthy soils to define by indicators or by their ability to perform ecosystem services. How are we going to do that? And how do we come to an integrated spatial approach where soil is part of the process instead of sectorial approaches which might clash with another? So there's enough where we can team up together and well, change knowledge and experiences also on soil policy. And well, my personal motto is still, if you take care of the soil will take care of you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Margot. So we have 3 questions here in the chat box, but I suggest, because we are running a little bit behind the schedule, I suggest we'll collect all the questions that were answered and also that were unanswered, and we'll provide the answers offline after the webinar, and all these will be uploaded, will be available on the Solver website. So we'll move forward to the next presentation that will be provided by Anna from IHOBE. Anna, the floor is yours.
You're unmuted. You're muted, Anna.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yep,
Can you see the screen?
perfect.
Okay, now I have to see it myself. So, excuse me, but I cannot see the screen. You can see it?
Yeah.
Let's see. What's the problem?
Probably if you stop sharing and you
Yeah,
try
perhaps
to
we can do
share
it
again.
that way. Okay. So, my name is Ana Alzola, and I work for IHOBE. This is the Public Society for Environmental Protection in the Basque Country. Oh. Do you have problems, Marta?
We can't see the screen. We don't share anything.
Yeah, but Ingrid, can you share the screen maybe then? Okay. Oh, it's coming. And so we see it, but now in presentation mode. Up, we see already the next slide, Ingrid.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, as I was saying, I'm Ana Alzola, and I work for IHOBE in the Basque Country. And next slide, please. The Basque Country is a small region in the north of Spain, even smaller than Wallonia. And I must say that I feel even smaller after listening to France, Wallonia, and the Netherlands. But this is the beginning of something for us. I mean, working on soil health, and we are proud of it. So we would like to share with you what we are working on. So as you can see, the Basque Country is very small, with a quite small population, but with a high population density because of the scarcity of soil. You can see also that we have quite a complicated administration with 3 levels. The government, the autonomous government, we have 3 provinces and 251 municipalities. If you take a look at how soil is used, you can see that most of our space is covered by forests, both natural and also plantations. A quarter of the surface of the region is used for agriculture, and about 6.6% of the soil is occupied by cities and villages. Next slide, please. In the Basque Country, there is no, let's say, a law or normative or legislation on soil protection as a whole. We have a law on land and urban development. We say land and we say suelo. Suelo in Spanish is both land and soil. But I would say that the only law on soil health is the one on soil contamination. In fact, I think this is the most traditional area of soil protection we have been working along since the beginning of the 90s, more or less. But we can say that although we are at the beginning of something or of new goals on soil health, many things have been done, both from the environmental point of view, but also from other sectorial legislation. From the environmental point of view, you can say there are three quite new laws. The first one about environmental administration, the second one on natural heritage, and the third one on energy transition and climate change. And all three of them have quite interesting requirements about soil protection. There is also interesting requirements in sectorial legislation, mainly in spatial planning guidelines and also in agriculture and forestry. I have to say that I'm in love with the spatial planning guidelines because I think the way this document considers soil is quite useful, and it's going to be the way, a way to go on in introducing soil health in spatial planning. But do we really need a regulation on soil protection as a whole? But we don't really know now. And we have decided to try to explore the opportunities we have in what we already have to go on, and then we will see in the future what to do. For that reason, we have decided to prepare a soil protection strategy. It was approved in 22, and yeah, up to now it's our, let's say, our Bible. Next slide, please. This strategy is how to say it, is something like a box in which everyone here in the Basque Country has put something inside. Everything, or almost everything, we are working on soil to protect it so that we can contribute to soil health in a, let's say, it's not in a voluntary basis, let's say. We have the boxes we can see here. I think they are quite strange, or they could be seen as strange, but the aim of this organization is to facilitate how administration and institutions work with their competences. So we have spatial planning, agriculture and forestry, natural environment, and then we have, on the other hand, we have industrial contaminated sites, excavated soil and circular economy, and there is another box related to climate change. And in the middle, we have a quite important one related to cross-cutting actions, because the main aim of this strategy is to make us work together. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So here you can see we have been and we are working together, the different departments of the government, together with their different organizations like research institutes or soil promotion organizations and this kind of people. We also work together with Udalsarea 2030. This is the network for municipalities, for sustainable municipalities. And we also work together with the province governments. As I told you, we are quite a small country, and this is, I think it's an opportunity because we almost know each other, so we can work together quite well, let's say. Next slide, please. Please, next slide. Thank you. About this strategy, one of the main topics is to have the same mission, the same vision, and also the same objectives in future. Then it was quite difficult to get to a consensus, but finally we decided to adopt the general goals of no net land degradation and healthy soils for 2050. And of course, this one of no net land take principle. This principle is, as I say, a key of the strategy, but it's also a key of the guidelines for spatial planning that were adopted in 2019. As a matter of fact, these guidelines contain a chapter on soil health, let's say, on really the chapter is on circular economy, but there is a part of this chapter devoted to soil as a resource, and I think this is quite an advance in soil protection. Next slide, please. If we take a look at the tools that are available, well, the first one I would say I would show should be this one, the spatial data infrastructure. It's called GeoEuskadi, and there is a lot of information there. Many of it related to soil protection. The problem is that it has not been organized or considered systematically, so we can take a decision or to have a photo of how our soils, how healthy or how degraded our soils are. So this is something we have to do in the future. Next slide, or what we are doing now, I mean, please. We have decided to work on what we have. So if we talk about soil quality, we have quite a lot of data on soil contamination because we have been working on this topic for the last about 30 years. And there is also a monitoring system under construction, especially for agriculture areas. There are also thousands of data. They were not taken with the aim of qualifying the soil according to its health, but we think it's important to organize, to compile them and then organize them. We have also, I only mentioned two planning tools. The first one is urban growth perimeters, And according to the guidelines, every municipality should describe or should draw urban growth perimeters. So it's not possible to build anything further that this perimeter. And as other people said before, we are also taking a look at this artificialized soil indicator. We have to work on it because the definition is different to the one in the European directive, but we are on it. And here we can see some tools we think are important for soil protection, and we have worked on them in the past, and we need to adapt or to update them to get some improvements in soil health. Sustainable urban planning, of course, we have guidelines in the past that should be updated. Strategic environmental impact assessment, we consider this could be quite a powerful instrument for soil protection. We have also economic instruments and subsidies, but they are not organized, and we don't really know if they are there are gaps, for example, of if we are subsidizing the same things from different institutions. So we are in the way of improving them. And the last one, green public procurement, is quite a nice instrument. Let's say we have been working this instrument for the last years, and it's a way we have administration to work as a tractor of the rest of society to do things more sustainable. Next slide, please. We think that cooperation is the only way to go on, and I have mentioned here just one of the projects we have. This is a collaboration between our Ministry on Environment, the organization we have in the Basque Country to promote soil for economic activities, and IOBE. And we have an agreement in which we help each other to remediate brownfields, let's say recalcitrant brownfields, but not only that, but also we try to manage new soils the most sustainable way we can, working on not only building, but also urbanization and this kind of things, using nature-based solutions and other things. We are also working in an awareness rising plan with, I would highlight the citizens science program we have called Lursign, and in this program people can test their own soils for health. Quite simple things, but very interesting, and they can register the data on a website. And then we are also working on a knowledge map on soil-related topics. It could seem a bit strange, but although we are a quite small country, we don't know who is doing what, and it's quite important to develop such a policy. Next slide, please. These are some cases when we we are very focused on municipalities because they are the closest administration to soil. So we are working with them a lot, and when we ask them, the answer is always the same. We need inspiration to do things. We need simple instruments, but well based on science. We need knowledge, and we need also money, of course. So here we have some case studies that have been done in the Basque Country, and some of them will be explained in the next webinars. So I won't go into detail. Next slide, please. Now, what are we working on? You can see here that we are trying to design a soil data system, and people from the agriculture department and from its research institute, NACRE, is working hard on this in the agriculture soil. I think it's also interesting to mention a program that is being led by the spatial planning department, and the aim is to promote multifunctionality of the Basque territory, taking into account ecosystem services. There are people working on this question for the last years, but it's true that this information has not been used in practice. So this is the aim of this project. We are also working with local communities to identify with instruments we could use to optimize the implementation of land take hierarchy. And another of our goals is in reuse of vacant land. As you can see there, PFAS is also something we would like to start working on, and there are many things going on around climate change and soil as a way of mitigating and adapting to climate change consequences. Next slide, please. So this is my last, slide. And as you can see, we are worried about data. Which data do we need to address soil health? How these data are related to soil functions, and mainly how are we going to consider this information into different policies? And for this, we need to take into account the different levels and scales, because it's, as Cecile has said before, it's quite different to work in different scales. And we would like to foster interinstitutional cooperation, connecting different policies, different interests to the same goal, that is soil health. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna. So there are no questions in the chat. Therefore, I suggest to move on with the last presentation of another European country. And I'll give the floor to Yvonne Olsen from the Swedish Geotechnical Institute, who will provide us some insights on the soil health aspects in Sweden.
Thank you. Can you see my slide now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm Yvonne from Sweden, and I will talk about a little bit about what we have have in place. I will not go into so much detail, maybe to not repeat the obvious things we have in common. Let's see. Something happened here with my sharing. Now, for example, well, to take something like that, it's probably for me. Yes. So in Sweden, we don't, for the moment, have a soil health law or a soil law or one soil law at all. And we have no single institution that is responsible for soil health or for soil. But what has actually, I think, been good during the discussions within this time that the new soil monitoring law has been discussed is that the Swedish EPA has started to coordinate collaborations between soil-related authorities for different discussions related to the proposal and to soil health. That has been really good. And to say something about Sweden is that we are actually one of the largest countries. We're not a small country in Europe, but we have a small population. We're only about 10 million inhabitants. And actually over 70% of Sweden is covered by forests and 9% is covered by lakes. There are more than 100,000 lakes. And only 3% is built up in landscaped land. So it's a bit different from the other countries represented here, I think, in that context. Actually, also, we have had environmental laws for some time. And we are actually, the laws we have today, they to a large extent stem from the environmental objective systems and the objectives that are from 1999, because we have 16 environmental goals, and we say that they are the guiding light in Swedish environmental work. And we have then many of these environmental objectives that also relate to soil functions, soil health, ecosystem services, etc. And we have 26 national authorities that work together, will work to achieve the goals, but 8 are responsible for the monitoring and evaluation of these, or one or more each. And many of these quality objectives are directly related, and some are indirectly related to soil quality and so thereby soil health as well. For example, what is included is the functioning of the forests and farmland ecosystems, and also contaminated sites management. In 1999, we also got the Environmental Code, and together with the Planning and Building Act from 2011 and the Forestry Act from 1903, these laws are well, they're supposed to then protect the environment, nature and water, including contaminated sites, spatial planning, housing, infrastructure, and agricultural soils. So there's quite a lot of authorities involved and all these goals. We have some, to mention just some, we have some key regulations that relate to contamination and also to soil health. It concerns environmental damage, risk areas, hazardous activities, and protection of soil health, public health, and also measures for remediating and pollution damage. We also see that in the environmental code, we have guidance to preserve agricultural land, and that is to ensure the ability to produce food and other public goods. And we can actually not use agricultural land for buildings or potential agricultural land. We can use it only if it's necessary to meet essential public interests. And that is also if we can't meet these needs in another way by using other land. We also have the Forest Management Act, and the forest owners, they must manage the forest in a way so that they can both provide a long-term good yield, but they also need to combine that with preserving biodiversity. So we have a lot of legislation in place already. We also have goals on greening cities and having ecosystem services more into urban environments. And also we have milestones in our environmental goals. And these, the majority of the municipalities, they should by 2025 integrate urban greenery and ecosystem services into urban environments. And to do this, the National Board of Housing, Building and Planning, and also the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency, they have together developed a method and guidance on how ecosystem services and urban greenery can be utilized and integrated. And we also have work on green infrastructures, and this is a focus on biological biodiversity, but this also, of course, then relates to soil health. When it comes to the soil management and land planning, we have a system for managing contaminated soils. We have 85,000 sites that we have identified, and we have a searchable registry. Not all these, definitely not all these have been investigated or remediated. I think that it's around 27,000 that have been in some way then investigated and classified. And these registries, this is over Stockholm, central Stockholm, contaminated sites there. Everyone can reach them and see at the different sites what contamination or activities there is there, or if they have been investigated or not. And the Swedish EPA also provide guidance, of course, then for investigation, for risk assessment, etc., and for taking care of the contamination. We also have quite a new guidance from the Swedish EPA on the reuse of excavated soils. It's not only for the reuse of excavated soils, but that is part of it. And this provides guidance on how these masses can be used for construction purposes, and what investigations you need to do to be able to make them to be able to use them again, to reuse them, etc. So there's quite a lot in place already for the reuse, but we also discuss quite a lot what we are actually doing when we are reusing soils, what's in them, do we cover everything? So it's an ongoing discussion. When it comes to soil management and land planning, there have been many projects or many research projects and tools used to see how can we address ecosystem services in the physical planning of buildings, for example. And this is one example of one tool that is called the EcoGeoCalculus. And this is actually in addition to the geocalculus, where you calculate actually the geotechnical stabilities, for example, of the ground, etc., and can calculate the costs for building. But what you can do with this tool is that you can look at where there would be potential for vegetation, for example, and where there is an ability to infiltrate water, so that this program you can use for example, optimally localize land that should support vegetation, and you look at if you are building facility, if you build facilities in an optimal location to use the permeability of the soil, for example, if there will be rain or flooding events. Yes, and this program is freely available to download and use. In Sweden, we have had well, a long tradition of having monitoring and databases, inventories, and we have the oldest one is from 1923. That's National Forest Inventory, but we have a lot of others as well. And also the later years, we have had more of authorities that are data hosts for environment data. So, for example, this list says that the Swedish Geological Survey has the responsibility for toxic substances in the environment, etc. So different data hosts host different data, and this is quite good because it becomes easier to find data and to have quality assurance, etc. So that is a good basis, I think, for future work, future monitoring work related to soil health as well. Several of the countries here have mentioned PFAS, and PFAS is of great importance now in the PFAS work. So a lot is centered around PFAS. We have so many potential sites and so many sites where we know that we have PFAS. Already in 2010, we found PFAS in drinking water at several places in Sweden. And in the middle of 2014, researchers, they urged the government to initialize a commission to decide what to do and how to go further, how to go on. And in 2014, the Swedish Chemicals Agency and Swedish Food Agency, they started the PFAS network for anyone affected by the PFAS problem. And this is still running. And actually now running is a lot of activities. Well, in 2015, the Swedish Geotechnical Institute, they were assigned to develop guideline values for PFAS in soil and groundwater. It wasn't really possible by then because there was data only for PFAS to derive soil guideline values and groundwater values. There are new values that are under revision now, so we'll see what will happen there. There is also research and knowledge dissemination program going on now, where the Swedish Geotechnical Institute are testing a lot of several remediation techniques, and in the same time, Swedish EPA. They have a governmental assigned to strengthen the national coordination on PFAS, and also a task to improve the knowledge about how PFAS in the environment affects levels in food and also human exposure. And also the county administrative boards, they are mapping PFAS presence in soil, groundwater, and surface water since 2023. So a lot is going on, and several agencies, research institutes, consultants, entrepreneurs, etc. are involved in this work. We have several test sites right now. You see these in bold are the PFAS sites. There is a site working on activating carbon barriers. We have source term stabilizations with active carbon, and there is a surface active foam fractionation. So we are testing different techniques around Sweden. We're also working on soil washing as a part of a treatment train. So there's quite a lot going on, but there are also other issues around or sites around contamination, not only in soil, but also in sediments, because we have fiber sediments around the coastline that are also where we also have test sites. And we also have biochar testing, biochar amendment testings, and also exposure and bioavailability in a city called Falun, in a copper mine. What is also a focus on now, it is to find different kind of nature-based solutions and also gentle remediation options to see if we can improve the soil health. And there's, for example, we go to the contamination issue, a project going on at the Chalmers University, where they are evaluating effects of gentle remediation options on soil health. For example, as a DDT contaminated tree nursery in Sweden. So there's just in this October published a paper on this, and also there is also master's thesis ready just now. What is also quite special maybe for us, I'm not sure, but we are losing a lot of land. We have a coastal erosion, and we also like to use nature-based solutions or gentle remediation options, not really gentle options, or soft options sometimes, for the coastal erosion. So there's quite a lot of guidance there, quite a lot of research going on. But there's also a method catalog in place for different kinds of systems to prevent erosion. But there are also several kinds of citizens involvement projects, and we are part of the Coast Snap project, where people, just everyone, can contribute to the monitoring of the coastline, so we can see what happens with it. And there are these places you can put your camera up and take pictures and report them, and then we can see and monitor the coastline changes. So that is quite interesting. Biochar has been used for some time to increase the quality of soils, and we have several projects going on where we try to stabilize contaminants in soil, but also to improve quality, the soil quality. This is both also to reduce environmental risks and also to reduce waste. And what is interesting is that the last maybe 10-15 years, there's kind of become a switch in how we look at remediation, because there's so much more thinking about going from decontamination to actually improving soil health while we are remediating. So that is, I think, a good path forward. Well, some challenges, just a few, because there we have many in common with what the other countries have said. But I said in the beginning that we have only 3% of the land that is built up and landscape land. So the principle of no net land take is quite difficult for us when we are also expected to have one of the largest population increases in the EU, and very little land that is actually built upon. So it's a challenge only to reuse land for us. We also think that the scale issue is important, but also for the land planning issues, and that we need to further work on planning tools related to soil quality and soil health. And as I mentioned, how to go from decontamination goals to healthy soils goals. How can we address soil health in a remediation of contaminated sites and change the way of setting remediation goals, for example. Also, the diffuse pollution issue is problematic, where to include It is not today included in the existing guidance on contaminated sites management, just maybe mentioned briefly. And also the emerging contaminants. We have not seen the end of the PFAS problem yet. And what will be the next PFAS? Hope not to the same extent, but we think that we need to collaborate around emerging contaminants a lot. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. I think that there were no questions. Yeah,
There is a question. Yeah.
There is just one
One
question.
question in the chat. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Marta. Yeah. It's
about the program
you-
for the PFAS measure in soil. What are the methods, if you are aware?
The methods that we are testing,
Yeah.
or
No, for the PFAS measurement in soil.
for the PFAS measurements in soil. Sorry, maybe I should look at the question myself. To measure, if there's a program to measure, there is a program to measure, but I'm not sure if you mean if it's the PFAS 10 or PFAS 14 or and I don't think I could answer actually to that.
Probably you can consult your sources.
I have to consult
Provide an answer after the webinar with the other questions.
Yes.
Okay,
It
so
might be that I
we
have a
are
comment here.
slightly running out of time. So I'd like to thank first of all to all of our speakers that provided really a very interesting insights of the different aspects of the soil health management in each of the countries, and also interesting but also very diverse aspects. I would like just to remind you with regards to the next steps. Just a second, I'll share my screen. Yeah. So as we mentioned, you can already block probably these dates in your agendas about the next.
You're not.
Marta, it's not a good screen.
Sorry.
I think
It's a mail.
it's a mail. Yeah.
Yeah. Is the good one?
Yes, I think. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It's with the dates of the next webinars, right? Because I have.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah. Okay. So please block the next date for the next webinar that we will organize on the 24th of January. About the recycling brownfields on the 4th of April, contaminated sites on 12th of September, and the concept of TechnoSol on the 7th of November. And you can also follow us on LinkedIn or you can consult our webpage where we will publish the recording, the presentations from this webinar, and also the question and the answers that were unanswered from the chat. So
Marta, just also to detail that those webinars will be digging a bit more in the details, and there will be other speakers than the members of Solvers, because will be experts in the field that represent their reflection and their research around it. So we will dig a bit more in the details of the discussion. So that was to add some precisions.
Yeah, thank you very much. So would like to thank to all of you for your attendance, for your interest. We noticed that there were 170 people who registered, and we had here 75 attendees for this webinar. So it's a great thing to see that there is a lot of interest for this topic. So continue to follow our webinars on and other topics that we'll share during the coffee breaks during this year. So thank you very much, everyone.